Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Aisha, your host. The Study Quran, a new translation and commentary, was recently published by an editorial board of Muslim academics. The main goal of this work is to increase understanding and literacy of the Quran. Does the Study Quran achieve this goal? How is it groundbreaking and different from other Quranic translations? Joining me is Dr. Shabir to share his thoughts on the Study Quran. Welcome to the show, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on.
So the Study Quran seems to be getting a lot of attention, both by Muslims and mainstream media. Why is that?
Well, it is a landmark publishing effort. I'd just like to introduce it here. It's called the Study Quran by Syed Hussein Nasser, who is given as the editor-in-chief, and there are other editors as well, four editors. Each one of the four editors took various parts of the Quran and translated some parts and commented on their particular allotments.
And all Muslims?
Yes. The intention behind this was to produce a document which is of this kind of academic quality, but at the same time written by devoted followers of the faith, as opposed to works which have been done about Islam in the past and may continue to be produced, which are done by non-Muslim academics. So they usually take a dispassionate approach, a stand-back description of what Muslims believe. And some of those descriptions may come across as not being infused with the faith that the Muslim faithful would like to see in a commentary on the Quran and other such related literature.
I noticed that you said, this is a landmark document, and I've been reading a lot that it's a groundbreaking piece of work. Obviously, this is not the first Quranic translation. What is it about the Study Quran that's making it so groundbreaking?
Well, I think the translation itself is a very good one. It's probably the best that we have had so far. And if the translation alone were to be published as a separate book, then that will, I think, have a more widespread circulation, and it will be much more useful to the general public than I think the commentary actually is. But with the commentary in it, this is a nearly 2,000 pages document. I know it doesn't look that thick, but the pages are onion skin thin, just like Bibles have been produced for a long time. And the commentary is written with very small fonts. So even difficult for a person at my age to read, but it really is packed with information. It culls together commentary from a wide variety of classical Arabic works written by Sunni commentators, Shi'i commentators, Sufi commentators. A wide variety of perspectives have been brought to bear within this single document.
And in the past, we've never had a book that has had these many commentators commenting on one book.
Well, in the Arabic tradition, we have massive Arabic commentaries on the Quran that do exactly this. They bring together a wide variety of perspectives, many different interpretations of verses of the Quran. But in English, we have never had something so comprehensive that brings together all of these different classical works in a single volume.
Do you find anything from your review, anything challenging or difficult to understand or sort of tie together?
Well, let me start with what I find to be good. I already said that the translation is a very good one. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the commentary, what is good about it is that it brings together all of these different perspectives. So it shows a kind of comprehensive, pluralistic approach that's very good, ecumenical. Now, the bad side of that is that while this would be good for academics who, for example, have some knowledge of the Arabic literature, but not so deep knowledge of the Arabic language to be able to navigate through the classical Arabic works, will find this to be a handy reference and a kind of an introduction to what is there in the classical works. It's good for academics. But if you put this into the hand of a common person, common Muslim or non-Muslim, then one would be bewildered by the variety of interpretations which are offered. So the variety is good for the academic who wants to make decisions for himself or herself by seeing that vast array of opinions. But for the common person wants to know, okay, at the end of it, what do you say is the meaning? The common person looks at these big names. Actually, one of them is a former classmate of mine, Mohammed
Oh, wow,
Rustam.
really?
Yeah, we were together students at the University of Toronto, and in fact, one of the contributors of an article at the end of this study Quran is my professor Walid Saleh.
Wow.
It's a book done by respectable people. But the average person wants to know, okay, you respectable scholars, what do you say is the meaning of this text? Now, they may very well say, well, we don't know the meaning. Okay, say that. Say that this text is puzzling and we don't know the meaning. But often the meaning should be known, and it should be stated clearly, okay, I as a scholar, this is what I think this verse means. And now this is crucial in modern times, because if there's a verse, for example, dealing with peace and violence, and the young Muslim wants to know, am I supposed to fight the jihad on behalf of Islam? What am I supposed to do? So they go to a verse, for example, like Surah 9, verse number 5. They want to know, what does this verse mean that says, kill them wherever you find them? They want to know, in the end, what is the prescription here? Now, if they're confronting a variety of interpretations, typically this study Quran will say, okay, some scholars say this, some scholars say this other thing, a third group of scholars say this other thing. Then
and it doesn't offer a conclusion at the end?
In the end, often there is no conclusion. If one starts reading at the beginning of the 9th chapter of the Quran, one will find a bewildering array of opinions, and one gets lost between these opinions, like which one is the correct one. And I can see a young person just picking the one that they like, that seems to fit with their presuppositions or outlooks or inclinations. And that could be very bad. And of course, somebody else may be picking some other ones that are good. Like you may have, for example, something like a Sufi commentary on the Quran, what is often referred to as a Batini commentary in Arabic, or we might say an allegorical or mystical sort of rendering. So there's a verse in the Quran, Surah 21, the 30th verse, which says that the heavens and the earth were together at one piece before God split them asunder and created everything out of water. So one commentary given to that passage says that, well, this sky here could be the spirit, and the soul, the earth is the soul, and the soul remains dead until it gets water from the spirit, just like the rain comes down and waters the earth and then the plants grow. So soul, spirit, and so this is something different from what the text actually says. That's an allegorical interpretation. Most people will find that sort of interpretation to be not very convincing, but maybe some people will find it convincing. Some people like that. So there are different things in here that other people, that various persons can gravitate towards. Everyone can pick what they like, and often there is no conclusion from the authors themselves.
So do you think this is a strength of the book? Because I know you did mention that in Arabic there's a lot of this, right? There are different various commentators commenting on it. So do you think this is a strength of the book, or do you think it's a weakness?
Well, it's a strength for academics. Somebody who is inclined to study it at a scholarly level wants to see that variety of interpretation, and then the scholar will make up his or her own mind as to what the verse actually means. But the average person does not need that variety. The average person needs a clear indication from our scholarly opinion, like what is this verse telling us to do? What do we do now? Now, I mentioned verses dealing with violence. We can take the same thing across to verses dealing with women's rights, for example. And often where an opinion actually does emerge as like the final thing in the verse, this may not actually suit a modern sort of conscience in terms of a Muslim thinking, okay, this is the book, what do I do today, how do I follow it? For example, if you go to the verse regarding beating women, this is commonly interpreted, the 4th chapter of the Quran, the 34th verse, often interpreted to mean that a man could beat his wife. So I would say it doesn't mean that, and many others would say it doesn't mean that, but my explanation of why it doesn't mean that is different from what some other people give as the interpretation of why it doesn't mean that. Now, the authors of this commentary just simply conclude with what would basically be summarized as saying, okay, yes, a man could beat his wife, but not severely, and it's better not to do it, and you should only be used as the last resort. And probably the beating should be done with something very light, like a handkerchief or a toothbrush. But of course, many women will find such an interpretation unacceptable today, and find that no matter what, if a man has the unilateral right to reprimand his wife in this manner, then she does not really have equal footing within a marriage relationship. Now, it is interesting that whereas often the editors do not usually criticize the opinions, they just mention the opinions of the classical scholars, they criticize a modern commentary that says that the verse doesn't mean that a man cannot beat his wife.
So is this just for this verse, or do they kind of do it for, some of the more controversial verses, quote unquote?
Let me just correct myself in case I use two negatives and contradicted what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So they criticize the opinion of some modern scholars who say that the verse does not mean that a man could beat his wife.
Okay.
And those modern scholars use an argument which I myself find to be deficient, and they point out the deficiency. But I wish that they would have used a similar method in criticizing the opinions of the classical scholars as well. Because an opinion is not criticizable only because it is modern. If it's wrong, it's criticizable. And if it's wrong, it could come from classical scholars as well. And often they mention the opinions of the classical scholars without criticism. And it's not only in this issue. Now, to answer your question, no, it goes across the board. Regardless of what issue they're dealing with, it seems that the editors have a great deal of respect for the classical scholars, and which is a good thing in a way, but also a bad thing in that if that respect is not coupled with the allowance for criticism where the classical scholars are wrong, then what we do is we perpetuate the impression given to our youth that the classical scholars said everything right and we just simply follow them and we don't criticize what they said. And that would mean that everything is taken down hook, line, and sinker because it comes from the classical scholarship. And some of their opinions that are found and given in the pages of this now edited work are actually dangerous opinions if we think about youth actually acting upon those opinions.
So it's interesting, the criticism is specific to the modern opinions or the modern text, but not the classical.
Yes, in fact, the editors were very clear that they were going to stay away from modern interpretations and just simply give us the classical interpretations. But on that one case, they brought in the modern interpretation only to criticize it and then to result in the final conclusion that, yes, a man could beat his wife, which obviously is not acceptable in our modern times. So we must have an interpretation that does not give that allowance. And I feel that I have that interpretation, which I've actually explained in this show on other occasions. But that's not the point so much about this one instance, more universally throughout the book. For example, Surah 33, verse number 59, has classically been interpreted to mean that a woman must cover all of her body, including her face, except for that she can allow, she can keep open one eye or both eyes, keep uncovered, that is, one eye or both eyes. And they just simply give that one interpretation as the interpretation, whereas, of course, the verse does not have to mean that, and I've explained on this show why the verse does not mean that. But that's the interpretation they give. Why? Because that's in the classical sources. So now, a young person today who wants to follow God and say, okay, let me get what God's book is telling me, will go to this text and find that interpretation and says, see, it says right there, a woman must cover her face. So women who do not cover their faces are not really truly observant Muslim women. So it's both good and bad. In the end, I still recommend it. I think it's a marvelous work. It's a publishing phenomenon. It brings together the classical Arabic texts and makes it accessible now for people who do not know that much Arabic to be able to read those texts directly or fluidly. And it will be a boon to academics who want to study Islam from its classical sources. But it put into the hands of the common people, I think it will result in a lot of confusion and misunderstanding about what the Quran actually means.
A very enlightening discussion. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.